We're on chapter 2. Oh, come on.
No. Hit the on your screen, on your.
I hit the enter. I
Hit the arrow.
button. Is it going anywhere, Dennis, for you?
Nope,
Arrow button.
stuck on a way of life.
Aren't
I'm
we
stuck
all?
on the way of life.
Hang on. Here. Oh, you're not in your
Oh,
car.
good.
Oh, there you go. We got a 20-something. That's exactly what we need in this
Pull it,
class.
just open it.
Yes. Help us with the
Did,
technology.
did it go forward?
Nope,
If it's not doing it here, it's not doing it there.
I don't think that was the share.
It's a book.
All right, I'm gonna try something.
Did you find an Easter egg?
I did. I was looking for a book over there.
See, the
I was
problem is
cleaning out
we
my car
couldn't
this
find it
week
because
and underneath the seat.
An Easter
I
egg?
thought, what's that?
Was it
Easter
an
egg, Easter egg.
You put them in your car?
Well, I took Susan's basket.
Oh,
It rolled under and it must have.
apparently. Okay.
No, I didn't hide it in the car.
I was gonna say,
Escaped
that
with her
would've been a
escaped with
good
her
one.
basket.
you know how, where to go to do the share screen.
That or at some point you were talking to somebody and really late in it.
Jane looks perplexed.
Full of Skittles.
Only whispering.
well, these are all wrapped, so.
Hey, I've been here since we started trying to prepare.
There is a small Milky Way. Two Starburst. Loaded, maybe a little hard. And a little chocolate.
It
Probably
doesn't
down
matter
for
what
your
I
trash.
do, it
Anybody
really
need
just matters
Well,
what's
we
up
have
there.
3 kids down
There, that changed it.
I don't know,
Chapter 2, reasonableness of faith.
Okay,
might be a little.
all right, guys,
Probably about the same
I have it.
size.
let's go fast and before it goes
Give
away.
her one push,
Yeah,
and then you'll be clear.
I got the enter button, I'm fine.
All right.
Reasonableness of faith. First of all, is that a contradiction? Question number 1. Anybody?
No,
Not a contradiction.
depends on who you talk
All right, that is what we're talking about today. Is it a contradiction? Tony, yeah, we're going to. Tony Chvala-Smith obviously says it is not, and here is why. All right, so he starts with Psalm 26. Vindicate me, O Lord, for I have walked in my integrity. Remember that word. Walked in my integrity, and I have trusted in the Lord without wavering. Prove, O Lord, and try me. Test my heart and mind. For your steadfast love is before my eyes, and I walk in faithfulness to you. Remember last week we talked a lot about the mind. So this week is about the reasonableness of faith. So it does reach our minds, our integrity, and we have trust. Those are the buzzwords in this scripture. Romans 11:33-34. Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and how inscrutable his ways. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Okay, so this is kind of the unknowing Lord scripture. So we've got a little conflict going here. Okay, so we start with the mystery of life. To give oneself to a breathtaking mystery is hardly irrational. It is indeed one of the most singularly human things we can do. So here's the first thing. Here's the first question. How do you yield to the lure of the unknown? What do you have in your life that causes your soul to sing? What is it that you love that you go to in order so you can just kind of let go of yourself? And now, last week we talked about all of the beautiful, like nature, being in nature. But this is a little more specific. You're sitting in your home. What can you do? What can you listen to? What can you read that just lures you to this Anybody want to throw something out before I give some hints?
Mine is still nature, even if I'm sitting in my home.
Okay.
And Lee, since he's home now all the time, he spends an awful lot of time just sitting in the backyard.
Okay.
Either, under the shade tree or up next to the house watching and listening to the birds. And, when he was hunting, that's what he liked, was being out there and just listening to nature.
Okay.
It just opens your heart when you look around and see all the blessings that we're able to see, experience.
I think when you're young, a lot of things are unknown. And so, either you try them out or you don't. And my philosophy always, it's not always to my benefit, but I'll try anything once.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of
Sometimes
like.
it worked out and sometimes it didn't.
Yeah, I kind of like that
Yeah.
smorgasbord. Well, like art, for instance, everybody's kind of got different degrees of artistic skills. But for me, at least, I've always appreciated art. I could stare at especially a painting like by Monet. That's what really got me into it. You can just look at the brush strokes and kind of lose yourself in that whole technique and just the beauty of the art. That's why we have art museums. That's why we have art classes. Obviously, writing and literature, family storytelling. Oh, this isn't the big one yet, though. We haven't gotten to the big one, which all of us know because we love to come to church. And I think you guys know where I'm going. But writing is an interesting thing. Can you lose yourself in your writing? Can you lose yourself in your reading? Lots of us who are book freaks, we lose ourselves in our stories, don't we? We just kind of forget about the rest of the world. It's almost like waking up, when you go back to the real world. And he included this family storytelling, and that I really liked that. When you get together with family and you share stories, it's such an uplifting experience. Even
Family history, a real thing.
yeah, and it's really it's that setting. It's not somebody just telling a story. It's everybody sitting around together and sharing the stories. If you picture your whole family and one person remembers one thing and then you laugh and the other person remembers another thing, that's there's kind of a real.
Unfortunately, the best time and the worst time is that it happens after a few days.
But that's why I've always loved the Catholic wakes, because it's during that time where they loosen up and they tell stories, and then it's about the celebration of that person's life, because there's always good stories.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the one that I know soothes our soul, because we come to church and just different kinds of music. This is why I asked this question, because obviously spiritual is on that. What other music soothes your soul? Okay.
Wow.
Say it again. Bach. Okay. Classical. Okay.
The oldies.
The oldies. Okay.
I'm gonna have Bach in church today.
Woo, we're gonna have Bach in church. I put this second though. Look.
Old stuff.
That's part of the oldies.
It is kind of the oldies. We all have our era, don't we?
From the rock and roll.
It does. See, well, you have a different rock and roll than I do. For me, it's from 1975 to 1985. That's it.
That's not wrong.
That's my era. Hey, it is to me.
Missed it by 10 years.
Now that's what I call classical music.
Yeah.
Right up there with mom.
See that there's a different answer for all of us. We all can probably have in our head, this is my favorite music. I put this music on and your blood pressure goes down. You just release into the music. That's what it means to soothe your soul and to really kind of trust that mystery of art and music. That's where he's coming from in this chapter. So trust is as essential to human existence as is love. They are akin. They travel together on the human journey. Trust and love. So I found this because he started talking in this chapter about different kinds of love. the parents' love, there's romantic love, there's friendship, there's love of the sport, which I thought was interesting. But I really liked this quote that I found when I was just kind of playing around on the internet. A good friend knows all your best stories, but a best friend has lived them with you. And that's when you really get the trust of a friend or a spouse. You know, you don't just talk about your best stories, you live them together. That's that trust in the relationship, you know, that for some people it's hard, but we all have someone in our lives that we can say, I trust you enough to travel this journey with me, you know. So that's what he's talking about there. So then he talks about the passion of a profession. And I threw science and math in there first. Actually, look at that, science, math, and teaching, and they're all represented in this room. Because, you know, Ron, I think you've got a passion for math. Correct me if I'm wrong. Got a passion for math, got a passion for teaching. And to me, you know, I mean, I would actually not call law my passion. I think that parts of it are, but I see people like Ron and, you know, Nadine and Paul, when you guys talk about your careers, and Jennifer, when she talks about her hospital experiences, it's like, that's a real passion. That's what he's talking about today. Find your passion and make sure you are passionate about your profession, because that will just drive you so much better. This guy taught for 40, 50 years, long time, from the beginning of time. And his kids loved him. His kids still talk to him about how good of a math teacher was. And that was because he had a passion for
It's
teaching.
a gem in his art, too.
That's right, Jim, you and your art, you have a passion for your art.
When you were talking about the unknown, that brought to mind giving yourself up to the unknown reminded me of just reading Scientific American or some
Okay,
other scientific stuff, because
yeah,
once you get beyond Newtonian physics, it all gets kind of murky.
but it's exciting for you.
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's the difference. You and Paul would be like, what? I have no idea I know Newton. Is that who you're talking about? Newtonian science? Okay.
Well, in science, you know, people are motivated by the thrill or the possibility of discovering something new.
Yeah,
And whoever does a dissertation is working on an area
Yeah.
of science that is pretty
yeah,
much brand new,
yeah,
uncharted territory. And, you know, whatever you discover, but
Yeah.
it becomes uniquely your
Yeah.
contribution.
and that's got to be, from a scientist standpoint, that's got to be exciting. It's like, maybe I can find something, you know. It's that vast unknown, you know.
Well, Karen discovered something yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yesterday.
I don't even
You know,
remember
nobody
what-
has ever discovered whether a hummingbird can hear a sound or not. It's been an undetermined thing. They don't know if
No one has
hummingbirds can
ever studied
respond to sound.
hummingbird,
Nobody's ever studied
whether
it.
they hear or don't hear.
Think about how
So-
small their earphones are.
There you go, scientists.
So all the
He's a
things
scientist
that
is
you
already
think are
starting to figure it out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, things
And
come
no one
up that,
studied it.
yeah.
I asked Alexa.
Did you hear that, Dennis? I know we all were kind of talking at once there. Sorry about that. But yeah,
It hasn't been studied.
say that again. So yeah, it's really kind of that thrill of the unknown that we're talking about, discovery for scientists. You know, for me, I will say that I really do love the research part of the law, because, you know, it's like I have to pull from a lot of different sources in order to come up with my argument, you know, and it's exciting if the judge actually agrees with me, you know. So that's kind of that excitement part.
Well, you've got young parents and, you know, the excitement of watching their child learn something different and new.
Absolutely.
And, you know, how children can get to the heart of things
Yeah.
that adults just, you know, look over.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Well, and that's why I think that's why Tony Chvala-Smith started with, you know, that mystery and that trust that we have in our relationships, and we all know that feeling. And then he switches to the word faith, and he says faith makes us fully human. capable of reaching into the unknown in delight and wonder, in fear and certainty. We're at the heart of life's deepest encounters of love, thought, creativity, or service is a fundamental trust in the goodness of reality. I like his optimism. I'm not sure I always share his optimism, but he has a fundamental trust in the goodness of reality. And I think we can all agree that there is a fundamental goodness in God that we all kind of drive towards. Does that make sense? And so I think that's where he's getting here. He's getting at this. We do have a fundamental trust that God loves us. You know, we got that basic thing. And so he sees it as a fundamental trust in the goodness of reality. Our humanity is a profound mystery, yet the human story reveals how our capacity to trust is essential to our existence. It's true. It's really hard to have a relationship if you don't trust the person. That's essential in a relationship.
You can have a relationship, but it's not a very good one.
That's true. Okay, so before I give you his definition of faith, after what you've heard and just in your own minds, what is faith? Anybody got a definition?
Believing something that you can't really.
I think faith, we have to exhibit patience
Patience.
to figure our faith.
Okay.
And
Kind of figure it out, to kind of figure it out.
one simple, silly example of that is when we would lose anything in the house, whatever it was. John was like a dog looking for a bone. And he was going to find it right now.
Yeah.
He had to find it right now.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to waste my time looking for something. It's going to show up later anyway. So we had many discussions over it. And normally it would show up
Yeah.
and my faith was reinforced. Simple illustration. But I think we just get in a hurry
Yeah.
oftentimes and want right now. But if we just be patient,
Yeah.
God will work with us.
Yeah.
There was something interesting in the paper this morning, a study that was done at one of the universities of Florida by a psychologist, and he studied certainty and what happens when people are certain that the world is functioning in one way. And usually it's a negative way. So, you know, I'm certain that we're not going to fix the climate. I'm certain that we're not going to fix COVID. And the outcomes when we express that kind of certainty are usually not good. They lead to poor decision making and poor outcomes. But people who are willing to express uncertainty, and to me, I'm kind of equating that to faith, of saying that I'm open to the possibility that things can still get better. And they tend to make decisions that lead toward making the world a better place, or making my life a better life, making me a better person. So I used to think that the opposite of faith was knowledge. Now I'm thinking today that the opposite of faith is misguided certainty.
The opposite of faith is misguided certainty. I like that.
So I don't know. I read that this morning, and I was thinking about the Sunday school lesson because I just got done reading the Sunday school lesson. They all seem to kind of come together.
Here's what Tony says. Faith in God is a kind of open-ended trust. It's a yielding to the unknown in love and wonder.
And I think that's what he's saying. It's just, we keep our minds open to all possibilities, not so closed that we're absolutely certain the world is going to be a bad place, and bad things are always going to happen. But we keep open the possibility that God's at work somehow. That if we place ourselves in God's hands, we're part of that work.
You mean my yield?
And I really like how he compared this kind of faith to how music makes me feel. Because when I hear a new piece of music, that is so, it just touches my soul, my eyes well up and I can just, listen to it. It just feels like it transports me, into this place of wonder. And so if we can have faith in God in that same way, which we all have had those moments, that sense of wonder, but we have to open ourselves. It has to be open in the trust. We have to yield. We can't be that person who says, I already know what the outcome is. You gotta have trust. So it's not just ideas, opinions, adopted, abandoned, lifeless, asking simply for approval or disagreement. So it's not about the debate, which, obviously is kind of hard for me. I like it to be about the debate. It has to be beyond that. It has to go into the roots of our personhood, stirring and unsettling us to our core. That's what faith in God does. To be open to that touch.
I'm not sure if you can have faith without hope. Because hope gives you that openness to the unknown. That I do know that bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But I, have hope that I will be able to handle it when it hits.
Yeah.
And so I think that our faith is one of the big building blocks of faith. Faith is hope.
Faith, trust, hope go together.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, the mystery of God within and beneath all other mysteries of the world is an invitation which confronts us as ultimate because it calls us to entrust our whole self to the mystery. I like the word confronts us because it kind of challenges me to say, once again, it's not what you've already learned, Jane. It's what you're going to learn in the future. You have to trust in that mystery that there's more than what I'm ever going to learn. So be okay with that. That's hard for me. At the same time, in the presence of this mystery, our humanity is elevated by a deep desire to yield ourselves fully. We're yielding ourselves to goodness itself. So when you take that step in faith, it elevates you. You have those mountaintop experiences, those experiences that are very hard to put into words. That's what happens when you can find a way to yield yourself to the mystery. Faith in God is a way of life. Faith draws on all the resources of our humanity, including our intellect. So in one part of the book, he says it's radical, but he's also saying it's not irrational. So you can have rational faith. That one is kind of difficult for me. But he's saying that because he's beyond our intellect, but we have to trust him that we're going to learn. How's that set with you guys? Is that okay? That was a hard one for me.
One of the things that science tells us is that there are some things that it is impossible to know. There's things that you can prove, you cannot prove.
Is that cat thing again?
No, not
Okay.
really. No, that's
Yeah.
not Schrodinger's cat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But there are things which I don't remember what they are, but there's some things which are mathematically impossible to know whether they're true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what's interesting about the scientific experiments when I read about them and when you guys talk about them is that you're actually kind of trying to disprove yourselves. Here's my theorem. Let me do all these experiments. And you're not actually trying to prove something. You're trying to disprove the existence of it. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm not sure I would agree entirely with that.
Okay.
I try to get my students not to use the word prove. I think it's not a good word for science. But I think we look for evidence to support previous theory. So all scientific experimentation should be based on some theoretical basis that we know already works, whether it's Newton or anybody else. And then we push the event horizon just a little bit further, trying to figure out if we have the right hunch and going down the right pathway to the next
Okay, I like
discovery.
that better.
So rationality and faith, I think I would equate rationality with a theoretical background, that which we already know, that which we have learned, and faith as the hunch, the possibility that keeps driving us forward to make things even a little bit better.
But there might be something else. There might be more to learn.
Yeah, but it has to be a rational faith. You can have an irrational faith and go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
There's nothing there.
right.
So when a scientist designs an experiment, comes up with a hypothesis,
Yeah.
they want something that they're pretty sure is going to work. They want to test it first to make sure.
Okay,
So it's kind of a rational faith.
okay.
I mean, I can go up to the top of the cliff at that place at Lake of the Ozarks where people jump off, and my faith would tell me I'm pretty sure I'm going to break my neck if I do this. I probably would, so I don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I choose. My faith leads me to make a rational decision. Other people look at that and say, "Yeah, I could do that."
Do that.
Maybe does.
And they do it.
And do, and you do
Yeah.
it.
And I think I broke my tailbone.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
No recovery,
You
but I did it.
you proved my point.
Okay. I like that. I like that explanation, Paul. You know, you're actually starting in a place of rationality. So when you're moving forward,
I like,
If anybody ever, go ahead, Rob.
you said someplace you had a hunch that this might, to me, that relates to hope. I was, when she said hope, I go, my brain was okay with hope. But this hunch is a forward thinking, this might happen. I hope that I can work this out, or and a lot of things in life are that way.
Yeah, but the difference, that's true. And in science, the difference is that it's based on previous knowledge and experience. It's not just a wild guess.
Right.
We're going to see whether this happens or not. And the proclivity of science is never to just simply try to disprove something. You can't disprove what you don't know exists. So scientists won't usually go down that pathway.
so when we flip this over to the Christian path and what we're doing in our religion, in our Sunday school class, we are trying to take what all of us, we all have shared experiences, we all have shared history and knowledge, and we're taking that base, and that's a rational base, like you said, and then we're trying to deepen it more. Every time we come to class, we're trying to figure out a way to understand more. And I even like how he says, this is how we create the story of our lives. To me, the learning process is the part that I love about Christianity and what we do.
Did you ever see the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson?
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
And so he's a psychiatric patient. And he's sitting in the psychiatrist's office, and it's filled with people with all kinds of anxieties and emotional distress. And he stands up and he says, "What if this is as good as it gets?" I mean, and he's a real negative guy anyway.
Yeah,
And so, that's a person without faith. You
Yeah.
say, what if this is as good as it gets? I'm always thinking, what can we do to make it better? How can it be? How can the world be a better place? How can we be the vision that Jesus had and proclaimed in God's kingdom coming to us?
I think part of the key to that is this was taking place in the psychiatrist's office.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a
So-
quote about people with faith cannot be done, usually get interrupted by people doing it. Something like it, and that's one of the lines we use in our class all the time.
Yeah.
Try to make,
There's a possibility.
yeah,
Yeah.
many other ways.
Especially with kids always have more hope than any. They've got to get their hopes dashed by somebody. So I always love to see the hope with kids. Eyes. So can we know God? We've talked about this a lot already, but I kind of found some pieces. Oh, that's kind of hard to read. I apologize. God is not a piece of data. Sorry, scientists. He's not measured by and analyzed. He's not geometry problems. Sorry, Ron. And he cannot be proven in a court of law. Sorry, me and Jenny. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, there you go. I said he. There he doesn't know God. That's because you can't know God. We do not know the gender of God. That's a good point. And, you know, it really is hard for me because I keep using the word truth. I mean, that is just ingrained in me, you know, because that's what I do. But I think Paul's right. I mean, you've got to actually change your language a little bit. So no, you can't.
God is in all those things.
Yeah.
May not be those things, but certainly God is in all.
But here's that Romans quote again. His being is unfathomable beyond the normal ways we think and know. So,
I think that you're normally bring out
yes,
saying how big is your God.
yeah. So here's the Exodus scripture that Moses says to him, you know, hey, what do I tell thee? What is your name? What shall I tell my people after he met God? And God said, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am, and sent me to you. I think that's part of the reason why the Jewish faith doesn't like to have to use the title of God, you know, because that's so holy. That's the Holy of Holies is his name. And God's nature is to be. And that's what Shakespeare was trying to do. Humans as creatures are mortal and limited. We might not have been, and one day we will cease to be. I think I put it that way. I remember being confused when I was writing this. Our existence springs from elsewhere, not from ourselves. I have no idea what he was saying. Sometimes I write things up there to see if you guys can actually figure it out for me.
Well, to me, that means that, you know, our existence is not the product of right this moment always. It's a compilation of everything that we've experienced along the way. And so it's bigger than right this minute. It's all of our background and our experiences and our family history and our traditions. It's everything.
Makes me think of the dinosaurs. Humanity might be like the dinosaurs. We once were, and now at some future time we won't be. Nice.
Maybe we just didn't make ourselves made by somebody else.
Yes.
Well, I think it says to me that existence is not, our existence is not up to us.
Not up to us.
I mean, therein lies the human dilemma. You know, it's very difficult to conceive of our own non-existence, and yet it's very straightforward. It says someday we will cease to be.
Everything about us is limited, as opposed to God's existence. It's unique. It simply is. That truth exceeds the power of human comprehension. He was there with the dinosaurs, but he's going to be there after we're gone. That's the part. That's that infinite mystery that we can't get our heads wrapped around.
Or in the words of Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it.
Here's that Romans scripture again. Riches and wisdom and knowledge of God, unsearchable, inscrutable.
You think of the peace that passes all understanding.
Yes. That is that mystery. Yeah, absolutely.
I keep having thought of all the new photos that we're getting from the James Webb telescope, and you know that scientific area is now spanning so much, and there's so much more beyond it. It's so amazing. Little piece of it.
Yeah.
And yet, like we talked about last week, we as humans, we all have components of what's in the universe, and so we're all kind of
I didn't catch all that.
So That was Nadine, and she was talking about, this is how we talked last week about, each of us, even though it's something that we can't understand, we're also a part of it because we have a piece of the universe in us. And that new telescope has kind of proven, how beyond reasoning. I mean, we don't know what's out there. It's just finding things that we never thought were going to be. But at the same time, we all have these pieces inside of us. So I like that. But did that do you justice? I guess, yeah.
I think it's interesting how you can have a person that is a problematic person and nobody seems to be able to get along with them or work with them. But then along comes one person that can touch that life in a way that opens them up and just helps them.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of what God does to us. We can be negative and withdrawn and all that, but, if we're open enough to let God into our heart and allow us to see outside of ourselves, then we can bloom and grow.
And really, that's who Jesus was. That's how Jesus taught us to live, because he touched so many souls that others thought were untouchable. So we've already talked about this. We're better now at understanding that beyond human reason's ability is not the same as being irrational. It's like love. Love is not always rational. We struggle to probe its depths, grasp its height, but when words fail, we do not cease giving ourselves in love to others. We do not have to comprehend it to trust it. I like comparing faith to love. Faith in God is like love. We love God so much that we trust him enough to listen and to help us along our way. We do not have to put it into words. He just is.
Isn't that one of the things when somebody asked Moses, I think it was?
Yeah, we just read it.
What did God, what was the name of God?
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, that was three slides ago.
Yeah.
I am. That was the Exodus. That was the Exodus scripture we just read. Faith in God makes sense of our yearning to seek beyond ourselves for what is higher, good, true, beautiful, and just. So this is our yearning again. I wanted to ask the scientists this. Does the unpredictability of the universe make more sense if you imagine a creative mind at work? I think non-scientists have a better time with this than scientists. It's kind of that, what did we learn in Christianity, in our Christianity history class, where we were talking about the Christians who believed that there was a hand at work, and that was who God was. We buy this? Are we buying it?
Are we saying that a creative mind creates unpredictability?
Well, I'm not sure if God thinks of himself or herself as unpredictable, but we just can't predict God.
I don't know about the word unpredictability. I'm struggling with that because, yes, there are a lot of things in the universe that seem random, probably because of our limited understanding of how the universe works. But there's also a lot in the universe that is very ordered, even at very small levels, at the level of cells and molecules, as well as the level of the galaxies and so forth. A lot of that we haven't discovered yet, but as we discover it, we also discover the order. So I'm not sure that unpredictability is the best word there.
Maybe the unknown.
I would say
The unknown.
Yeah,
What's that?
the unknown.
Okay, so yeah, so I would agree with that. I think, you know, go back to the first chapter, it's the mystery that of the universe that makes sense.
Well, we always are struggling to understand why bad things happen to me. You know, because, you know, just like Job, he was believed in God, he followed all God, and then all this bad stuff happened to him. So that's kind of the unpredictability of life that, you know, you just have to kind of go with the flow. What comes your way, and trust that God's going to be there and walk you through it.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you really mean by unpredictability, at least in modern science. The basic nature of the universe is unpredictable. But on the very, very small scale. But it gets to be a lot more predictable on a, you know, something the size of a fleet or bigger.
What is the uncertainty principle,
Yeah,
Dorothy?
that's one of them, and that's a mathematical thing, which Ron probably knows. You can guess, but there's pairs of things that you cannot, for example, position and velocity. If you have, there is a limit of how accurate you can know the position of something if you know its velocity, and vice versa. There's actually, you can calculate how unpredictable it is. But that's, you know, that's sort of an esoteric thing of knowing what unpredictability means. When we're talking about unpredictability here, I'm not really quite sure what he means.
I do think scientists and non-scientists look at this differently, you know. And I know Tony Chvala-Smith has a theology degree. We'll have to ask him about what he thinks in terms of scientists. But I always come back to, you know, scientists know so much more about the universe, you know, like what Paul was saying. I mean, nowadays we all know that the earth is round, you know.
Not everybody still believes.
Well, whatever. I'm gonna talk about that.
Almost.
Okay. Well, you know, but you know, there was such uncertainty beforehand until it got proven, and now, you know, like the Earth center, you know, revolves around the sun, kind of a thing. You know, I mean, once science has figured it out, there's an order to it, so it's not necessarily unpredictable.
Maybe he's just talking about the unpredictability of life in general, like
Yeah.
Arlene was saying, you know, sometimes bad things happen.
Right. Yeah, and we'll get to that too. It really is hard.
Study of chaos.
Yeah.
Maybe he means randomness.
Yeah, the randomness.
Somebody won $1.3 billion yesterday.
I know.
I'm sure they didn't expect that.
It wasn't me. I tried.
Ryan's sister lives in Illinois. I asked her, she said no.
No. So we get back to this prove word. We're not proving that God exists, but we are observing different things in our universe that support our convictions and the life of faith. That we're not being irrational nor misguided. I really like Paul's language that we start from a place of known and then go to the unknown. So I do think there's a predictability in that. So here's the question that keeps coming up. How do we reconcile evil and suffering with faith? I really like that we should look to the psalmists, because I've told you guys before, I read the Psalms a lot, and a lot of it is about the suffering and anguish and asking God to, you know, these cries for justice kind of a thing. And very rarely do you see God actually answer it and smite somebody for them or whatever. So it's more about the psalmist understands that there's this anguish of human grief and mystery. And maybe it's just about a God who loves and listens to us. For us, for humans, there is only nature. Then what we call suffering cannot be mourned because it is simply what happens in a silent, pitiless universe. This is without God. It's just,
I don't like that sentence at all.
I had a problem with that one.
I know. I had a problem until I read the next sentence. On the other hand, if God exists, then our outrage at suffering has a listener, and our sorrow has one who shares it with us. So that second sentence there is about how humans believe when we feel like we're alone. You know,
I think that, well, I don't know how you, I guess I read this. If you're talking about nature, I don't believe nature mourns about suffering, but that doesn't mean human beings can't mourn if something happens. I didn't get what he was trying to say there.
yeah.
And whether God exists or not, I still think human beings could suffer.
Yeah, this is almost like that second sentence is almost like, this negative, pessimistic world that we live in. It's not even worth mourning kind of a thing. I mean, he goes to a dark place in that sentence,
The first sentence, talking about the Psalms, you can always tell, after a few sentences, whether the psalmist is having a good day or a bad day. Because, one of them, he's just praising God, thanking God, everything's wonderful. And then the next, he's, the grief and the, smite this guy for me. And, how can you let me suffer like this? So, you can really tell he was having good days and bad days.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's bipolar.
Maybe he's bipolar.
How much human suffering, though, is a result of an evil decision that somebody else made? I mean, we've all watched in the last few months what's going on in Ukraine, and that's the result of the decisions initially of one person. And how many lives have been lost? How many people are starving because they can't get the food out of Ukraine to the countries in Africa that need it? How many people who were not combatants got hit by a rocket? That all of that suffering is tremendous. It's tremendous suffering, and it's all perpetuated by a human being or human beings. It's if we go back to slides 4 or 5 ago, you talked about love. God, faith in God, faith in the love of God, and God is love. Carry it a step further. If we all embrace that and practice that toward each other, how much suffering in the world could be relieved?
I know. But there's always going to be that evil person in the world.
Oh yeah, there always will be, but I think
But then you have to trickle down.
it seems like there's.
Yeah, that's why he talks
I agree
about.
that Bennetts or whoever said there's randomness in the person. Your guy, your scientist, who always says the universe is trying to kill us.
I was
But that
thinking
by
that
and large
2 minutes
is
ago.
that by and large is the lesser amount of the bad things that happen. Most of it's people doing stuff to other people.
Yeah, I was reading an article yesterday that the farmers in Ukraine are wearing flak jackets as they're plowing their fields
Crazy.
Well,
to try to protect themselves from the bombs.
so Tony Chvala-Smith is asking us, does it help that we know that God is listening and he is sad with us? That's one thing that we know God. He has given us the agency and we see all of this evil. We at least have a listener. But then he talks about people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Mother Teresa who take their faith to another level, that they want, Martin Luther King lived during a time when, obviously he was assassinated. It was a dangerous thing for him to do, to stand up there and talk about the rights of Black people. But he did it anyway.
Oh, you were talking about the Psalms, 23rd Psalm. Though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You are with me.
There you go. That's the ultimate psalm.
Ultimate faith.
Ultimate faith, exactly. So Tony tells us, fear and faith do not go together. Fear in a Christian life, is what I meant to say, is never a virtue. So that includes, we should not fear new knowledge, we should not fear change, and we should not even fear criticisms of our own religion. That's when you can get past that fear of, okay, this person thinks differently than me. That's when you can go forward in a life of faith.
Okay, Jane.
What does it mean to talk about the fear of God? I have an idea, but what do you think?
Well, I know the Baptists think differently than I do. I have trouble with that, to be honest with you. What do you guys think of the fear of God?
It's an old word.
A lot more powerful.
Old word.
Say that again, Dorothy. Old phrase, I don't.
It means it's our acknowledgement that there is someone or something
Powerful. Okay. What do you think, Dennis?
Well, I thought fear I kind of agree with Dorothy that it's kind of an old expression, that awe might be what they intended rather than what we think of about fear, that awe of God.
Right.
Well, I think, Old Testament, the fear of God was very literal for those who did not obey God.
Yeah.
Look what happened to the Egyptians, they were punished brutally before Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, if you accept that story at face value. And so the fear of God is, in the Old Testament sense, the fear of punishment.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's what they believe.
Yeah.
And
It was very
that's in
simple.
Psalms
It was
too.
simple, black and white back
Yeah.
then. If I am afraid if I don't believe in God, then I will be punished.
Clearly, God rewards those who are obedient and punishes those who are. In 2 weeks, I have to do a sermon on something. I have to go get ready for the service today.
So seeking to comprehend the world, I'm going to kind of skip through these. I've got like 5 more here. Faith is a principal way we can, in the words of that psalmist, we're walking in our own integrity when we're seeking to comprehend the world, our past and diverse cultures. That's what it means to walk in integrity. Integrity means being honest about what we do not know while living from what we do know. That Paul illustrated that for us already. Following truth, however partially glimpsed, wherever it leads, and acknowledging that the infinite mystery of God demands all we are, especially our deepest thought in openness and trust. I like that. I like those definitions of integrity. So here's our church in Tony Chvala-Smith's words. Community of Christ believes faith must welcome the quest for truth from all sources. God is truth itself. Therefore, wherever truth is found, God already is present. So it's really this seeking truth that we do in this religion, and I always bring it back to us. That's what we do as people. Mission Road congregation, our little world is about seeking truth.
I think it's interesting too that he says from all sources.
From all sources. Remember last week we said all good books. That's a real restoration concept. That's why we have, the Bible and the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants and present day prophecy. And it means that maybe all of those have some kernel of truth in them.
Maybe the Quran,
Maybe the Quran. That's right.
I like using the word faith and trust more than belief. Some time ago, Paul and I were reading something and it was social sciences kind of that if you have a belief, you literally stop searching. You stop growing.
Oh, yeah.
You stop going forward. Your belief, you're going to hold them tight. You're not going to.
That's good.
You're not going to keep seeking.
Did you hear that,
So,
Dennis? Can you hear her?
I like
Pretty much.
And Tony Chvala-Smith does not, somebody can correct me if I'm not wrong, but I don't think he uses the word belief in this chapter.
And
It's about faith and trust and love and
Right.
hope.
And we see that now with other faiths where their beliefs, these are our beliefs, and go tell us we're wrong. It's kind of encircled their wagons almost, whereas we haven't. We've opened our wagon train out, and we're still looking. So,
These are just his summary questions, which I think we already know. Faith in God touches the depths of our humanity. I like that. Awakens our response. Elevates our personhood.
That's partially because our church, does not have a dogma. This is how it is and how it's always going to be, period. We're open to change to prophetic.
It's like, yeah, we're sitting in the mystery. It's okay to just sit in the mystery and not know. Even though it's hard sometimes. So there's that. Justice matters. We can be honest, and God is present in the search for truth. That's what Tony is trying to tell us, is that there's still value of faith in a world of suffering and fear. That's hard for us, though. We're not all Mother Teresa's.
One of our big problems about suffering, though, and a belief in a God who suffers with us is, if you also have the belief of being omnipotent, why doesn't he do something?
Right. It's that old dilemma of he's all good and all powerful. Can you be all good and all powerful? I don't think so. He's given us our agency, and yet he knows what's going to happen.
but aren't we God's hands and feet?
We are God's
Aren't
hands
we
and
the
feet.
ones who are, that make us be the ones who are supposed to do something?
Yes. That's what Mother Teresa would say. I think it's sitting in that contradiction. I think we have to sit in the contradiction and not know the answer. I think that's what Tony Chvala-Smith is saying to us. We are not going to answer why doesn't God jump in and help us, because that's not knowable. That's not something we're ever going to know. So we have to be okay somehow with not knowing and just do those little things that we can do. You know, that's what humanity does. We elevate ourselves to do what we can do. So he ends with this restoration scripture. I kind of like how Tony is doing that. It's expanding my mind. Now, as I said concerning faith, faith is not to have a perfect knowledge of things. Therefore, if you have faith, you hope for things which are not seen, which are true. How about that? We can right back to hope. Hope, faith, love. Those are the things. And I'm running out of time.
And my question is, why, since we have this wonderful openness, why do we have such small numbers and the church next door is having to have people park there? And what is it that we have kept to ourselves so much and we're not getting people in the door like some other church?
That's a good question.
There's a lot of history out there, Marlene, that
Hey,
has
speak up.
a lot of damage in the past year.
That's true.
We just haven't been able to overcome all that history.
I don't know if it's even that. I think that there are people who want to be told what to do and want to have an easy time of it.
And there's that
And they
too.
want to just go and be spectators in their faith and show up. I've been here, and then they go home and not worry about it for 7 more days. So, there's a lot of reasons, but
I don't have the answer to that question either. I mean, that's a
times are changing.
that's a great unknowable question, for us as Community of Christ people, and for every religion. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing in order to get them in the door. We still have to keep our integrity. But on the other hand, it's so wonderful to us. Why, it's hard to say why doesn't everybody else see it?
Well, I think I have a thought. This is Sharon. I think there are too many people out there that don't believe their religion should be a journey. They just want an answer.
Yeah, that's what.
And I think in our church, we try to participate and grow and be on a journey of understanding and discovery. And I think frankly, there are some people out there that don't want that.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a question to keep on asking ourselves for sure.
And yet the other side of that is the more people you have, the more things that you can do in outreach and get people that want to be involved. You know, it's a two-sided coin. Either you really want to have lots of stuff going that you can participate in, or you want to just show up Sunday and go home and come back next Sunday. So it's two-sided.
Okay, guys, thank you.